So let us begin with chapter 4, that is recent trends in supply chain management. Now, one thing about chapter 4 is that it can vary on a daily basis. What is termed to be recent today might not be traditional one by tomorrow. And taking into account how fast the technology is being developed, how fast the telecommunication is being developed, how fast there are changes in transformation, and how agile the organization has become, there is always need for making the technologies better and better every day. And this results in changes in the supply chain or the way how the supply chain is being done. And all these things results in the trends that happens in the supply chain management. Now trend is something which is different from that of hype. Trends are what? Trends are something currently what is happening. Right now, what is the talk of town is nothing but the trends. And these trends, when they are withheld in the market, they become something what is accepted by everyone. And once when new trend come, these trends that stands to be recent today becomes traditionally accepted for tomorrow. So, and one more thing about recent trends in supply chain management is that on the general basis we can speak lot about it. And yes, when you go through textbooks, when you speak about recent trends in supply chain management, you can get only minimum amount of published sources. So what you can do is that you can always refer internet sources for the recent trends in supply chain management. So without you know speaking out of the topic, we shall start with supply chain management or the recent trends in supply chain management. See, one thing that you'll have to remember is that now that you know what supply chain is, you shall uh, think the entire chapter in terms of how supply chain used to be when it was formally introduced in the beginning or in the earlier times, and how has it changed as of today. So when you try to explain it in terms of these two, then all the recent issues it becomes easier to explain. That is not to tell only in this particular chapter. It can be in any chapter, including the modern organization and management, or any other chapter that you speak of. When you try to understand how initially it had been and how there has been change over times, then you shall be able to understand the concept in a better way. So, undoubtedly, in today's world, and with also not only recent, yes, recent trends. If I had spoke about it before, 1.5 years before this pandemic took over the world, maybe the recent development in any field would have been changed. And after pandemic or along the way of walking through this pandemic, if we see there is a huge difference of how things are being handled. So even that you can speak of. when you speak in terms of recent trends, what happened with the transportation, how there was a break in the supply chain, what was the result of it, what did the companies to come out of it, all those things. If you do a research over internet, you will be able to find many more things which are exciting to know, which are interesting to learn about. And also, yes, this pandemic COVID 19 is one thing. And on the other hand, before this happened, what was the recent change was in technology. Anyhow, the technology is being developed in a faster pace. But recently, there is a huge surge in terms of the big data. Now, this big data, please go and see. I have said in the earlier class also, please refer to it what it is. Okay. Now, big data is the talk of the town. That is, with the ease of information, we are able to collect a lot of information than what we can handle. And yes, out of all this information, there are some things which are most crucial for the organization. And along with that comes all those irrelevant information also. So handling this big data becomes very, very important for the organization. And with the amount of data that are being generated with this technology, with the use of smartphones, with the use of computers, it cannot be manually handled. And definitely we have to go in for the help of this technology, or AIs, what we can call. So, with all this big data, with this artificial intelligence, supply chain, digitalization and omni-channel marketing have become, more and more. And speaking about, we shall see each of the new development that happens in supply chain. Now, this first slide, it is just to see how there has been a changes, how things goes in supply chain management in terms of speed of delivery of the product, the flexibility that exists, and the quality of the products that is there. And what are the things that are to be taken care of? uh, Starting from order logging and planning, product designing and development, procurement of materials, manufacturing, acceptance, logistics, and support. All this are some of the new development that happens in the supply chain. Now, manufacture it in terms of how the process are being handled. So, now let us see some of the new development in supply chain. So, first one is undoubtedly it is the digitalization that is happening in the supply chain. Now, this digitalization of supply chain, it is encompassing all efforts so that the business organization, they are able to integrate the corporate system into what we can term as unified whole. And also, you know, it is helping in implementing new digital technologies. And this, without any doubt, will become the priority. So, the goal of digitalization is nothing but a smart, efficient supply chain system that is able to demolishes any kind of silos and creates transparency, and also which is able to enhance responsiveness. So it envisages a digital environment that does away with manual process especially, and also provides a single view of the organization, and it is able to encompass initiatives for creating even paperless system, right through to technologies for modeling supply chain networks and also creating what if kind of scenarios in the business organizations. The second thing is supply chain digitalization is anyhow there is, but then this digitalization or the supply chain solution they're being moved to a cloud system. That is, instead of one base, each different base for companies, a group of companies of the same name can have its information over the cloud, and it can work from any part of the world where this technology can be enabled. So while many organizations they still rely on this legacy on premise supply chain software, the future is nothing but the cloud, and it is available in many forms, including software that you have heard of, maybe SaaS, or we have infrastructure as services that of IaaS, and we have platform of as a service which is PaaS. So supply chain cloud computing it normally offers flexibility, scalability, and also a global reach while doing away with the need to maintain extensive and expensive on-premise computing infrastructure. So if we take the words of McKinsey Cloud, then specific spending in 2020 it was estimated to grow 6 times faster than any other kind of IT expenditures, which able to work with and complement on-premise supply chain software and cloud-based supply chain application. It offers a better user experience, greater functionality, and also it gives easy access to new features and releases in the supply chain. Then the third one we have is omni-channel supply chain, which is becoming very much necessary for the business organization. Now, what is happening is in response to the customer demand, these businesses they will make big strides towards offering a true omni-channel buying experience, which allows customers to seamlessly shop online or in brick and mortar stores. So these omni-channel supply chains they place greater demands on logistics and also supply chain with simultaneous requirement of supplying individual customer orders. Along with this, it also helps in replenishing stock at retail outlets. So the switch from single and multi-channel supply to this omni-channel supply, it requires a complete rethink of supply chain logistics. Then the fourth trend is that in every business organization, sustainability is becoming more essential. So the sustainability undoubtedly has become one of the key global chain trends. And with the customers, of the reason they're demanding green products and also for sustainable practices. So why this green are we speaking of? Sustainable is something wherein which You tend to be better every time without compromising anything that is related to the future. So, if we take the Unilever company, for this organization, the sustainable living brands, they were responsible for 70% of its growth in turnover. So these trends, they highlight the importance of eco-friendly supply chain practices, such as maybe switching from plastic to cardboard, packaging and using smaller packagings, and the organization, it also needs to be aware of their carbon footprint. So, and take steps to become carbon neutral and include sustainability as a part of their supply chain planning. So this carbon footprint is nothing but it speaks about how much of carbon is being used by somebody. It can be individual, it can be a firm, it can be a industry, anything that is in question. Okay, one more thing that has been, so the next one is Internet of Things. Sorry, before that we have uh, growth in circular supply chain. So, what could possibly this growth in supply chain? Now, growth in supply chain speaks that there is a move which is happening in the supply chain, which is of moving away from the traditional and linear supply chain. You traditionally how supply chain was, and now there is a shift from the traditionally accepted supply chain towards more circular supply chain, where these manufacturers, they try to reuse and rework the discarded and worn out products. It can be through it can be through refurbishment or by recycling components maybe into a new raw materials. So this is also very much necessary in terms of the entire world having very much limited resources in its hand towards converting into anything that is productable to the society. Now, apart from this, what we can tell is that away from the regulatory requirements for the safe disposal and also for reuse of discarded products, there is also a clear indication that customers, they normally favor businesses that recycle materials, and also which many leading companies are discovering additional value through this circular supply chain. So basically what we can tell is that in this circular supply chain, what happens is that it starts from the manufacturer, yes, it ends with the customer, but then from the customer there is something that is being sent back to the manufacturer. So supply chain. So speaking about this agile supply chain, it tells that to be able to compete effectively, this supply chain, they need to be flexible and they need to be agile. And not only that, along with this, they must be able to respond to all the changes in a very, very short notice. So this is, a radical departure that is happening away from traditional supply chain. Thinking that focuses on reliability, consistency, and also low cost. So one of the notable supply chain management trend that is happening is a switch from offshore manufacturer to local or near shore supply. So the advantages of this include always, the shorter delivery times and lower shipping costs, and with less money tied up in stock. Organizations, they can respond more quickly to changes in demand. And this we can see in terms of, uh, the motor vehicles, or in terms of smartphones. Earlier what used to happen, the manufacturer, he used to be producing his goods all in one place, maybe in his home country or the place where it used to be of less cost. Then he used to transfer it to all over the places. Maybe the demand would have been from any corner of the world, but to transfer from that place to one corner of the world to other corner of the world, it normally takes a lot of time. But with now this manufacturing manufacturers coming up with their units in those areas where they have lot and lot demand, it is becoming advantageous for all the business organization. And then we have Internet of Things. So, what is this IoT or Internet of Things? See, understanding all those words which has been put up here is very much important. If you know what these are, then you will be able to speak about the trends. Maybe the words such as digitalization, maybe what is omnichannel, what is agile, what is big data, what is sustainability, what is internet of things, what is artificial intelligence. You have to know all these things, and no matter how many times I would tell it to you, until unless you sit, you see what these words are, you see and you read through it and you understand what these are, there is no way that you will be able to remember all these things. So what I suggest is, whenever you have free time, just go and check what these words are. Maybe Internet of Things, or what is agile, what is being sustainable. Now coming back to Internet of Things. Now, undoubtedly, this Internet of Things is coming of age. So, as costs fall, research shows that number of businesses which are using IoT devices or Internet of Things devices, they grew. Okay, and the research shows that there has been a growth from 13%, it being in 2014, to upsurge of being at a point of 25% in 2019. So one of the reasons, that is IDC, forecast that 13.6% annual growth shall happen through by the year of 2022. So this Internet of Things, it allows organizations to monitor, inventory, or to make automation of stock recording, and also keep tracking of deliveries, especially in real time scenarios. So all the sensors that are being used, they can predict wear and tear on equipment, allowing timely ordering of spare parts. So this Internet of Things, of everything, it also increases the transparency in supply chain. And along with this, we have big data analytics and supply chain logistics, how they are coming together. Now earlier big data was something, logistic was something. Now these two things, they are coming together so that logistics can be made better. So big data we have, and it is always, we have to be thankful for digitalization of supply chain, and the growth of internet of things for this. And there is, because of this, there is greater availability of customer data. So all the companies which are into this field today, uh, at the tips of their hand, companies, they have access to enormous amount of data, and they are using this to generate all the business intelligence that is possible, all kind of models that they'll have to come up with, ranging from understanding past performance up until predicting future trends. So using this big data, it is possible, to determine customer preference and market trends, as well as they are able to redefine the supply chain altogether. And with this, we do also have the artificial intelligence and machine learning. So with greater and more access to big data, more organizations, they are turning to artificial intelligence and the machine learning to simplify tasks and automate processes. So there is one more published source called as Gartner. It reports that in the 4 years to 2019, there was a 270% increase, especially in number of the organization using artificial intelligence. There were predictive analytics and machine learning algorithms which were being used to improve planning, and thereby they helped decision support system. It also helped in identifying purchase patterns and automating the tedious warehouse processing that used to be there. What do we have now? We Yes, the barcode. It is a trend that has been passed away. Now all that we have is QR codes. Every time something is passed from the inventory or moves into the inventory, it shall be scanned in terms of the QR code, then everything shall be handled. The best example is that, think that you have ordered something over maybe Amazon or Flipkart. So you get the tracking details. Every time it is scanned somewhere, it shall be updated in your tracking details. How does that happen? All that happens because of artificial intelligence and the machine learning that is there today. So many organizations, or how can we put this? Now it is necessary that every organization uses this AI, and thereby it is able to replace humans performing this repetitive supply task and to perform all this complex supply chain calculations. Then we have this way of using prescriptive analytics, which enables us to move beyond the limitations of predictive supply chain. We have see the words, we are going towards prescriptive from predictive. Okay, so that is to tell, while sometimes regarded as the new kid that is there in the block, this prescriptive analytics, it is being increasingly used as a supply chain decision making tool. Now there are lot other decision making tool and forms of analytics such as diagnostic and predictive analytics, which focuses on past and thereby estimate future trends by providing useful insights that they share a common failing. So they do not provide information needed to make informed decision. So back then in 2019, this Gartner it predicted that the prescriptive analytics that we are speaking of, the market for this, it would grow at a rate of 20.6% CAGR by 2022. But the research that was done after that, it spoke about that the rate would be even faster in terms of growth that can happen. Then we have robotics and automation in logistics that is happening. That is to tell, as companies respond to these conflicting demands that is present in omni-channel supply chains, and especially with regard to the need for this flexibility and agility, many of the organization they are turning towards robotics so that they are able to speed up labor intensive tasks. So now speaking about this robotics, now robotics are ideal for this repetitive task such as maybe sorting, counting, and even for fetching and carrying products in the warehouse. And the International Federation of Robotics, this particular council, it expects that demand for robotics would grow by 10 to 13% by 2022. The next thing that we have is trends changing the supply chain management today. Those are the new developments. These are those trends which are changing the way the supply chain is managed. And the first one, it begins with demand planning. And now, like the traditional ones, the demand begins at the end of the cycle. That is to tell, as sources and also capacities for the manufacturing has increased with the increased way of technology and the effective way of processing. More companies nowadays have moved away from focusing their efforts on plant level production planning, and they're adopting more of demand driven focus. We took the example of Dell company. So the Dell company example that we took in chapter 1 is nothing but how they are adopting more of demand driven focus and trying to influence and manage demand more efficiently. So rationalizing what our company is best at, selling, making and delivering, and also aligning the sales force with that mindset is very much critical to adopt a demand driven model. So this demand driven approach, it can always help a company to create a more customer focused mindset uh, without sacrificing operational efficiency. And ultimately, demand focused approach to planning, it can significantly improve demand planning and management efforts and help the overall cost and custom service efforts. So this advanced demand planning system and proper strategies can also help uncover data and identify all the trends that are buried in a company's information system. So companies should conduct an enterprise wide internal review so that they are able to gather information from all aspects of the organization. So once after that is done, maybe goals can be then set to gain consensus. So getting consensus is very much important. And here getting consensus on what will be sold each month for each product line or category, and also above the revenue that is resulting becomes important. So of course, the driver of the demand review process is continuous improvement of the forecast accuracy. Now speaking about this, critical to success of any kind of demand plan, what is important is having all the stakeholders, even including sales, the manufacturing, the marketing, the finance, product development, and even supply chain to agree upon a consensus demand plan. Consensus is nothing but where everybody would agree. So it is very much important for all the participants to discuss all the factors uh, which are affecting customer demand pattern, such as maybe the deleted products, the competitors, or even the market production. So the aggregate demand plans and associated revenue plans. So once all demand for products and services has been recognized, the information shall be consolidated into one particular demand plan. So what we have to know about this is, without telling, this demand planning is a key input to the larger sales and also operational planning, or what we call as S&OP process. And it can have a significant positive impact on new product introduction or inventory planning and management, customer service, or supply planning efficiency and sourcing strategies. So, demand planning success is often tied to organizational structure. So, companies with dedicated resources, which are focused around demand planning and forecasting, they yield stronger results, and also they drive more value to their company. And the organizations that focuses part-time on demand planning and this forecasting effect, however, they often yield substandard results. So with the strategic importance that we can give for demand planning, all the companies, they need to be committed to this particular aspect from both a resource perspective and also from the perspective of technology. So the next one that we have is globalization. So globalization, what we can tell is that the business landscape, not the geographical landscape, but the business landscape, it is rapidly becoming more global. So, largely due to improvements in terms of communication, this globalization, it is dramatically impacting the way business is managed. Not only the way business is managed, the way it is being transacted. So, even on the most local levels, there is no area of the business which is more affected by the trend to global business environment than to supply chain. So this manufacturing, distribution, the sourcing of materials, invoicing, and returns, they have all been significantly impacted by the increased integration of global customers and supplier base. And there are a lot of companies which find that existing process and technologies that are present are not flexible enough for this kind of new business environment that has been
emerging. Then we have the increased competition and price pressure. This is to tell that if I take into consideration what had happened earlier. So historically this price, the product features and even the brand recognition, they were enough to differentiate many products in the marketplace. But with the more and more commoditization of products, companies they always need better ways to distinguish themselves, to differentiate themselves from that of the competitors. So in one case, a large global consumer goods manufacturer, they observed that prices around some of its commodity products dropped as much as 60 to 80%. And product innovation and brand equity no longer allow them to command a higher price in the market. So, in order to continue to compete with the cost, commoditized product, the firm it took the decision of making significant cost improvements with supply chain redesign and technology. So companies they are looking to their supply chain now in two ways to offset this trend. That is, first of all, they are looking at ways to reduce cost and thereby creating a more efficient value to remain cost competitive. Second is that companies are looking at ways they can provide value added service to meet the demands for most of the sophisticated customers. Thereby, they are able to bring uh, differentiation in their product. Not only we can tell about commoditization. What happens is that nowadays there is a lot of competition. There are thousands of substitutes for one product. So differentiation becomes very much important. And the fourth trend is with the outsourcing. So now outsourcing you have learned most of it. So as many companies they step back and examine their core competences. Some of the organization they realized that outsourcing parts or all of a supply chain can be advantage. Now with the marketplace improvements around information mediums and system, cost and quality of global manufacturing and distribution and product design capabilities, companies they are gaining additional synergies by outsourcing all of the parts of their supply chain. So, there can be significant economic benefits from outsourcing. But then remember this, that without the right system, without the right process, and without the organizational management structure being right, the risk to success can increase to frightening levels. So, in an outsource heavy environment companies, they need to put more controls and system in place to compensate for the fact that the supply chain capabilities they no longer reside on site. So, in an outsourced supply chain environment, the need for information controls and excellence they range from the information worker, which becomes a high priority. So when we are speaking about this optimally outsourced supply chain, uh, which can be outsourced either in its entirety or just a component, it relies on the supply chain superior supply chain network design or inclusion of the outsourced partner or in the information chain or establishment of control mechanism to proactively monitor the various components of the supply chain. So a failure to excel at any of these field or this components, it can result in breakdowns affecting the entire supply chain. So the next one we have is shortened and more complex product life cycle. That is to tell, today many companies, they are under pressure to develop innovative products and bring them to market more rapidly by minimizing cannibalization of existing products which are still in high demand. So in order to meet the needs of both customer and also consumer, it becomes necessary that the companies need more efficient product life cycle management. And this always includes heavy emphasis on managing new product introduction or product discontinuation or design for manufacturability, and also leveraging across their entire product and infrastructure characteristics. So speaking about this product life cycle management or product life cycle, one chief benefit of this process and technology is that it is helping companies design products that can share common operations, or which can share common components, or which can share common materials with the other products that are there in the organization, and thereby reduce the risk of either obsolescence of these products or any kind of write offs of these products, and thereby increasing cost, leverage on purchasing of key materials, and ensuring that infrastructure investments are optimally utilized in an organization. And addition to this, getting all these things done right will help to improve our organization's time that shall be allotted to market. So by focusing product lifecycle management efforts in all these key areas, a company can and will be able to buffer itself against all the risk of an unplanned cost increase, and maybe also it is able to bring down the risk that is there in bringing down a poor new product launch or an unplanned obsolescence or the write offs, and can enhance the overall customer perception of the company as an effective innovator. What here we are trying to tell is that yes, nowadays obsolescence can happen anytime. Uh, See, all of a sudden, the way how goods were being taxed here in our country, it changed from indirect tax towards the GST. So when that happened, all those softwares which were used to put this VAT or the indirect tax, it become obsolete by the time of maybe overnight. So that is how technology can be obsolete these days. And lastly, we have the collaboration that is happening between the stakeholders, especially in the extended supply chain that we have. So nowadays these supply chains, they continue to develop and mature, and there has been a move towards more intense collaboration between customers and suppliers. So the level of collaboration, it goes beyond linking information systems to fully integrating business process and organization structure across companies which comprise the full value chain. And therefore, the ultimate goal of collaboration is to increase visibility throughout the value chain with an effort to make better management decision and to ultimately decrease the cost of the value chain. So by having the right tools in the organization and by understanding the right process, and also by having a good organizational structure. Rather than telling good organization structure, the one that is best fit for the organization. Such a kind of structure in place collaboration shall always provide the key people throughout the value chain with the information that is necessary to make business uh, critical decisions with the best available information. And always remember that today and as of this day, you have huge challenges in separating what are the necessary information for the organization and what information are unnecessary for an organization.